Dennis and welcome to Gruen. We'll get to the panel in a moment, but first, the Commonwealth Bank. During the Royal Commission, we've learnt you can't trust banks if you're retired, terminally ill, or even dead. But at least it can't get any worse.
Thousands of children's Commonwealth Bank accounts have been fraudulently manipulated by retail branch staff in a bid to earn bonuses.
No! Not the Dolomites! An insidious marketing campaign targeted exclusively at children.
I'd like a Dolomite account from outer space, please.
We make saving fun and easy, whatever the amount. A Dolomite go further in a Dolomite account at the Commonwealth Bank.
Which bank?
To be honest, I'd still trust those Muppets over the current ones. I guess now we know why they're called Dolomites. They infest your bank account. Which bank can rip you off from the cradle to the grave and beyond? Let's consult the marketing.
But it's my money.
Nope, it's the banker's money. Sorry, little girl. At least this ad from last year gets straight to the point.
Ripped off?
Turns out the signs were there from the start. Those money boxes handed out free to kids. CommBank charged 6 pence for those. Years later, CommBank released a money box shaped like Darth Vader. Makes sense. Vader also had to hurt his kids. And then there's this ad.
Kids are gonna flip for this. People kind of like the money box. It symbolizes
Casey. We appreciate your effort.
Probably leave the money box as is, though.
Actually, an out-of-control flaming wreck that's dangerous to children is the perfect representation of the Dolomites. OK, but surely not all CBA's ads involve children and cheating.
Here's to cricket's off-field legends. They mightn't score centuries, but they can always score 100.
Here's a question for the Royal Commission. What exactly did Commonwealth Bank know and when? The clues were even in this ad from 1951, in which a Commonwealth Bank employee teaches school students about saving. Wait a second, what's that on the blackboard? Chief thief. And it leads to grief. Now there's a banking lesson. Time to welcome our panel, Todd Sampson and from PwC, Russell Howcroft. Joining them from BMF, Christina Aventi, and a new Gruen friend from Leo Burnett, Emily Taylor. Welcome. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about DNA tests being sold on Mother's Day. Well, it turns out Ancestry.com was also advertising around the royal wedding, which makes sense because there's one member of the royal family that could use a DNA kit. Ancestry.com loves an occasion so much, it also advertises on Father's Day, Christmas Day, Anzac Day, and St. Patrick's Day.
Everyone wants to be Irish on St. Patrick's Day because the Irish have all the fun. Ancestry DNA can reveal your true Irish roots, even if you never knew they were there.
Or be non-consensually kissed by your dead ancestors. Here's what Ancestry.com was running around Australia Day.
I discovered
I'm 3% Irish.
5% Italian.
15% Eastern European.
I'm 5% Polynesian. 5% Polynesian. 10%
South Asian.
and 1% African.
but most of all,
I'm 100%
Australian.
What makes you unique is what makes us Australian. Order your Ancestry DNA kit today and discover what you're made of. Save $30 for a limited time only.
What else am I?
I'm 90% Australian, 20% un-Australian, and 120% bad at maths. That's an ad for DNA testing, a service where you spit into a tube to find out about your genetic background. Emily, why does it feel like an Australia Day lamb ad?
So, I mean, both of these ads were designed for Australia Day. I think what's really interesting is they're not that overt in it about the fact that it is for Australia Day. And that's because when you sort of mix ancestry with Australia Day, particularly in the context of change the date, it all starts to feel a little bit icky. I think the other big similarity that you can really see here is they're both playing in the space of diversity. So with a brand, you want to really feel that you're culturally relevant and you want something you can push up against that feels interesting and topical to people. And at the moment, I think we all kind of feel with Brexit, you know, with a lot of the kind of things going on in the world that we're quite divided and that there's not really a sense of kind of uniting people. So both lamb and ancestry, I'd say maybe ancestry has a little bit more right to play than meat, but are choosing to be about, you know, diversity and the celebration of that.
This is an American company, and I think they learned a bit of a lesson in America because there were issues with genetics being linked to race, and they had some white supremacists being told on Jerry Springer that they're black. So there were problems with it. And so this is a kind of got this filter, this sort of PC filter over it to make it like we're okay. It's not about division, it's about togetherness.
I think it's great that brands are going down this route. You know, in the mid-90s, the Australian government used to spend a lot of money advertising citizenship. So every Australia Day, there'd be a big campaign, sort of $30 million. That stopped around 20 years ago. And then that's actually left a huge gap open for brands. And brands know that Australia are looking for something that unifies it, us. So I like the fact that brands are taking hold of that and giving that a crack.
And I think probably with this, there is that sort of unintended consequence that it can be divisive on even a day-to-day scale. And you'll see there it almost becomes a competition for how exotic you are and how many diversity boxes you can tick. You know, any ethnicity you can do, I can do better. Now, we don't want that happening. So bringing that, wrapping it up and making sure it's unified is kind of critical to make that permissible.
Your spit is part of a rapidly growing $155 million DNA industry. For all the fear about data mining, it might be time to start worrying about DNA mining too. Because last year, more people sent off spit than every previous year combined. But before DNA, Ancestry.com was obsessed with family records.
Finding out about my family on Ancestry has been a real eye-opener.
I went on Ancestry because I knew that there were stories to be told about my family, and now I can pass that on to my kids.
I was able to discover that I went back all the way to Edward I, which is amazing.
I have a great sense of pride in my family, even more so now that I've discovered who we are and where we've come from.
Oh, so exciting. He found out his uncle was a horse. There's a bit in a longer version of that ad that I found interesting.
I've got to tell you, I have never felt more like a detective in my life. The more you do, the more you want to do. It's completely addictive.
Yeah, same with meth. But I'm not going to do that either. Christina, why does the detective Nana want to get me addicted?
I think it's really interesting that the way they treat this like a game, because it is a bit of a lucky dip. Are you going to get Viking, villain, or something worse like absolute Blasville, because that would be the worst. I think we all want something a bit exotic in our history. Are you connected to Joan of Arc or Kevin Bacon? That's what you're looking for, that sort of random 1% to explain away your idiosyncrasies. And there's this whole other aspect of it. Like they talk about members since 2011, what have you. There's this whole world beyond that just initial sort of, you know, family tree building. That keeps growing. It's not the destination. It's actually the journey to there. And you are part of building that tree. So you'll get these sort of leaves and hints and through oral history and the things that you pick up from Nana's funeral and stuff, you'll try to decode that. It's basically Agatha Christie on steroids, building this sort of family tree, and you are absolutely part of this. And then that is just the gateway drug to this whole world of family merch, basically, where you've got the book, the mug, the film rights, if you're interesting enough, around sort of your ancestry DNA. So it's absolutely about a game to sort of keep you in there, you know, for this life, past lives and beyond.
And what about the upside in this business, Will? When you think about, so Australia, just in the Australian context, so there's 5.5 million baby boomers. They're now entering retirement. They're going to be idle. They're going to be looking for things to do. And of course, it's the most selfish generation in the history of humanity. So they can spend all their day just looking at themselves.
Yeah. There's a very commercial, practical reason to make it a sort of sense of discovery. For choice of a better phrase, the more engagement or stickiness to the website, the more money they make. Because if they buy a kit, that's $99. If they stay involved and do further things, that's $250 a year. So it's more than twice the return just by doing that. So they want to move people from a one-off into a subscriber because they're going to make more money in the long run.
It's interesting that it's only $1 billion business. That's its revenue, worldwide revenue.
But the reason it's only $1 billion business, because probably the biggest thing they've done from a marketing perspective is drive that price down below $100. So once they did that, it became a gift or something you could give to other people, as opposed to it being a more complicated $2,000 sequencing project. So they commoditized it. So but I don't think their end goal is to make huge profit in the short term. It's reminding me of Google and Facebook, where the idea is make very little money in the beginning, collect and harvest all the information, tell everyone we're never going to sell the data, just like Google and Facebook did. We're never going to sell the data, and then they'll make money. 10 years from now, you'll be sitting there going, holy crap, it's a $100 billion business.
Yeah.
Happily.
So governments are trying to, catch up on the Facebook and the Google and that digital world. So is there going to be a situation where catch-up's going to have to be required around DNA and the DNA databases? And if you play out the idea that, OK, we're going to actually get the DNA of everyone, and as a result of having the DNA of everyone, we're going to know before, your child's age, what the outcome's going to be, what the insurance premium is that they're going to have to pay for the rest of their life. There's stuff there which I think we need to be thinking about right now, because they're turning sort of DNA into a consumer proposition. Easy to buy, easy to get, and then have a laugh and have a conversation. But actually, that information could be something that we're not that happy about being on a database in the future.
And there's two sides to the privacy debate. We're heightened in terms of the risk that is attached to, I guess, releasing our data out there. The converse of that, because, life insurance companies now, you've got a duty of disclosure. People aren't offering up some of their data to geneticists who are trying to progress in terms of science and unlocking discoveries in terms of key medical conditions, because people are worried about data and privacy. So it isn't just a one-way street. It's really hard to keep up with the legislation and some of the ethics around this issue.
Yeah, a lot of it's about disclosure, though, because most people have no idea in the fine print. I mean, probably the best weasel words I've ever seen used in fine print is with this company, where they say, we do not own your DNA. Then further down it says, but we will own the rights to your DNA in the future and when you're dead. So I don't think people get the concept that we're so casual, we hide our PIN code at the ATM, but our genetic code, no, you can have that, that's fine.
I've left a lot of my DNA in a lot of strangers' houses. This moment is fascinating too.
I was able to discover that I went back all the way to Edward I, which is amazing.
Amazing. She's related to the baddie from Braveheart. But we found 10 other people tweeting the exact same amazing discovery. You only have to go back 1,000 years before you hit the point where all Europeans are related. Todd, why is that in the ad?
This is aspiration at its very basic level. They're saying that it's not about who you are, but it's who you could be and who you could be related to. This is like the astrology of genetics, really. I mean, it's like I'm related to Kim Kardashian because we're both Aquarians. So it is like, why are you looking at me like that? Are you an Aquarian as well? We're all related.
I think Todd's point also about the human bias in this is really interesting. I think that we get the truth we seek. And so because all we're saying is there's a probability that you're connected to Vikings who were serial rapists and killers, for the record.
Allegedly.
Because of allegedly. They had great headwear, but that's about it. We do import that sort of confirmation bias. I feel like, I'm a bit of a rule breaker, so of course I like Scandi furniture. I must be, Swedish. Like, there is that confirmation bias that sort of adds another layer to some of this.
I wonder if there's something interesting as well around sort of Gen X. And so Generation X is quite interesting. They're the divorce generation. and they're quite isolated. And that sort of notion of, you know, they'll see a lot of families that are much more connected than they are. And so the desire to actually have a better storyline around you, I think, is actually a really strong motivator to getting involved in Ancestry.com.
I mean, I think there's a lot of it as well as in post-church Australia. We don't really have the same sense of belonging that we used to from a community point of view. So people are kind of looking for an identity and trying to work out where they fit in. And I think a lot of this is about, you know, kind of doing that.
Well, that's actually someone who could have benefited from an Ancestry.com test. Jesus and Joseph. The results. Says here you're Viking. It seems that no matter your interests, Ancestry has a pitch for you. The brand has had 17 different ads on our screens this year alone. Here's a campaign pulling a different lever.
Through Ancestry, I discovered my family have always been connected to the sea. I have Viking ancestors from Scandinavia. An ancestor, Henry Cable, came out in the First Fleet. Another on my mum's side was even born at sea. All my kids surf. It's really about being in the ocean. Now I know why I am like I am.
Get started for free at ancestry.com.au.
That ad is part of a bigger campaign, all with the same tagline.
Now I know why I am like I am.
Now I know why I am like I am.
Now I know why I look exactly like Angry Anderson. Emily, is this a good slogan for the brand?
I actually don't mind it in the context of the work itself. So, I mean, I think there is something in it which is we are all maybe trying to rationalise some of the choices that we've made in life. And I do think this work answers something that I kind of felt was missing from the rest of the Ancestry work, in that, you know, you see someone talk about 2% Irish, and I kind of thought, so what? Why is that interesting? I don't expect to get a report that tells me because I've got Scandinavian heritage I like salmon more, but I do kind of feel like you sort of want a little bit of a, you know, and sort of to infer something as a result. So it works for me.
This just makes me think of a song that my dad used to sing. Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. And this...
Oh, my God, that explains everything.
It's not his fault, Todd. It's in his DNA.
So, of course, the digital world just allows for digital narcissism. Right. We are all our favourite subject. And... there's a huge business that's being built off the back of that.
I do think there's something interesting that this sort of brings about, that sort of it creates, and that's that sort of Ancestry sort of get-out clause. So here's this guy who's attached to the surf and he's saying, you know, wife's making perhaps breakfast, can you help me in the morning? He's like, nah, honey, I've got to go surf, you know, it's in my DNA. And I worry how it might be used in the future, particularly in my world, but there's just there's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I love that he was haunted by why he enjoyed surfing, the most pleasurable of all things to do.
Advertising is generally not strong enough to create trends, but it's very good at tapping into them. And this is tapping into the betterment trend, or the consumerism linked to endless self-improvement. All the self-tracking, the tracking your sleep, tracking your running, tracking your movement, tracking your diet, all of that. And this is an example of that becomes useful. So they know, for example, that aging of your skin is primarily 60% linked to your genes. So now what they're going to do is going to use this information, package up some kind of product, some kind of cream you can put on your face, which has science behind it that says we can help with your genetics and make you younger. So I see the functional betterment area they're going in.
Those ads say you can start searching Ancestry.com for free. But that's just a 14-day trial. And if you forget to opt out, you automatically roll onto a membership with yearly fees costing up to $499. Russell, do brands rely on people forgetting to cancel their free trials?
Yes.
Let's move on then.
Well, the new world that we now have, you run a piece of advertising on a television, that's like the shop front. And then the mobile phone or the laptop that you've got while you're watching the TV acts as the cash register. So you can immediately react to the TV ad. So go back, 15 years ago, The line of sight from see the television commercial to get the sale was much longer than it is now. And if you're able to get them on the hook via a free trial, it's so easy, just bang. And yep, then they rely on people just getting the experience. To be fair, they rely on the experience actually then providing the value, and as a result, they might conveniently forget that they are paying that size of a subscription.
I do think with this business, you know, that's a version of a freemium model, which is very common now. So, you know, a whole bunch of brands use that, including people like Netflix, but also if you think about like gyms have been using it for years. Fitness First relies on you subscribing and not attending, because if everyone went to the gym would be awful. But if you actually think about, you know, if you actually think
We've got an emergency, guys. Everyone has turned up. There's no room. We just never imagined this would happen.
I think auto renewal is marketing genius. It is, because they are banking on apathy, literally, and they know that most people will not, especially with free trials, they will, because it switches over, they will not check. And that's important because it's more expensive to get a customer than it is to keep one. So the idea of keeping them with a continuous rollover is a super clever strategy.
Your spit is about much more than family trees. Some companies are even on-selling your genetic data to big pharmaceuticals. And last month, a serial killer was arrested because a relative submitted DNA to a genetics website. The first brand to monetize your saliva was 23andMe, and it's not afraid of marketing around an occasion either.
Can you feel it? You're connected to the World Cup. It's in your DNA. You may not speak the language or have visited the country. You may not know their heroes. But we're all connected to a World Cup nation through our DNA. So this summer, root for your roots. Watch the FIFA World Cup on Fox and let Fox broadcast sponsor 23andMe help you find your team.
I'm going for the Neanderthals. Incidentally, Root for Your Roots is the name of my charity. Australians can buy 23andMe kits online, but that ad isn't playing here. In fact, 23andMe doesn't advertise in Australia at all. Christina, why?
Well, there's a pretty simple reason. 23andMe is a medical science company first, a genealogy company second, and it can't distribute those health reports due to sort of regulatory issues. Anything that you get of this ilk, you need to disclose to your life insurance company, and our legislation really hasn't kept up with where some of this stuff is going. So it can't actually sell its full promise. There's no point advertising. There's probably something else going on here, and that's that they know that the natural journey is once you get a report from Ancestry.com or something with another DNA spit test, and if you're not happy with that dud report because it's just a little, like, not exotic enough for you, then you're going to be going to another site in that sort of natural sort of digital trail to find that connection to George Clooney that you're really hoping for. So that's just a natural part of the journey there.
23andMe made this ad for Valentine's Day.
We had a nice dinner and genomes came up, as they sometimes do.
He proceeded to tell me about the 23andMe test he took and how he could not smell asparagus after he urinated. I thought, I am totally dating a nerd.
What a fun date. What else does your urine smell like? That's less than an ad for 23andMe and more of an ad for 23andP. Todd, why include asparagus piss in this ad?
I think there's two things going on there. I think there is a proof point, a kind of science proof point, and there's a talk point. So from a science point of view, asparagus, the smell of asparagus, which only 25% of us can smell, is something they could actually pinpoint accurately, the association between what they researched and the survey that they did. So it's a proof point. They can say, look, we can do this. Probably the more important thing is it's a talk point. It's the barbecue test. If you're at a dinner and you're explaining that you took this test to other people, you can use this to talk about, because to talk about human genome sequencing is quite complicated. In fact, if you understand enough to talk about sequencing of genomes, you're probably not stupid enough to buy these packs. So it's a talk point that's easy when it comes to science.
I do feel as well, though, what they're trying to do a little bit here is if you look at some of the other work, I do feel like the category's got a little bit of an image problem.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to lighten it a little bit here and appeal to a slightly younger demographic, and they've probably picked something that feels light and not too kind of heavy and a little bit playful, versus some of the other things that would be likely to come out of the tests would be perhaps, I don't know, that you have a propensity for diabetes or cancer, which is probably not so funny.
And we were out on Valentine's Day, and I told her that we both probably get Parkinson's. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day.
It is amazing, isn't it, that DNA has been turned into a consumer product, and that you can just buy these things off the shelf, and that to me, I don't know. When I play it out, I don't understand really the proposition. I don't understand the need nor the want, and I'm not a huge fan of playing this out in 15 years, etc., and where we can be as a result of a global data bank of DNA.
Wouldn't it be good, though, if you knew ahead of time that you had propensity not just through a family member, but to develop diabetes?
No. No, I don't.
But then you could curb your behaviour.
Well, I don't want to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
Fair enough.
I probably come from the Russell camp in that I come from a long line of sort of neuroses and paranoia. And if I know I've got and people who know me know that, well, I've got the paranoia of someone who smoked 1,000 bonds but did not have that much fun getting here, trust me. Anyway, the point being...
Whereas I, on the other hand...
If I've got a 5% increased risk of having a heart attack, anytime I have a pang of indigestion, I'm not reaching for my Lanta, it's 000 straight away. So I think that in the right hands, it's fine if you're much more well-adjusted than I. But I think for people like Russell and I, perhaps, you know, it's not the thing.
My worry is that it's a front for data collection of the ultimate data, which is your DNA.
That's right.
And if that's the case, and we'll only know after we all, like sheep, line up and donate our genome to them, we'll only know that when it's too late.
Yeah, that's right. There's scary science fiction movies just around this very subject. So it's not that I'm particularly anxious around it.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a scary science fiction movie that it's playing out in front of us.
But do you know what's interesting, Russell, is that the numbers, the stats that are showing is that 80% of people that take these tests are concerned about privacy. Right? So 80% are concerned about privacy, and only 17% of them, would not take it because of fear of privacy issues. It's weird because in the world today, it used to be everything was private until we made it public. Now it seems like everything's public until we make it private.
And we're in an era of just the most outrageous self-importance, and this is an example of the consumerism that it creates, and I just don't like that. You know, the narcissism that we're surrounded by creates all sorts of issues that we get to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
It's a good point you make, but back to me. Many other companies are jumping aboard the DNA bandwagon. There are DNA tests for weight loss, beauty, dating. You can find out what percentage superhero you are. I'm 1% Kryptonian, 99% Australian. You can even find out about the DNA of another kind of family member.
We discovered that Rocco's part poodle, so we introduced him to water.
A DNA test kit from Wisdom Panel can tell you what breeds are in your dog. And that can tell you a whole lot about how to make them happy and healthy.
Now we're wondering if he's part duck.
We discovered our child is part idiot. Emily, is this a product for people to discover they have too much money?
Yeah, I think if you're spending that on your fur baby, then yes, probably. I think it's also a category that's starting to go for people who are looking for quick fixes. So, you know, looking for the health answer or, you know, some kind of indication of what exercise will work best for me so that I can sort of, you know, spend most of the time on the couch and maybe go out for a 5-minute walk. So, yes, I think it is being used for people who are maybe a little naive.
There's probably another thing going on here. As markets, the category gets more mass and you have that market leader having quite a big share, the other people spot a buck. And it then splinters off into these niche markets. So if you take another category like RSVP.com, you know, we've got gluten-free dating and, you know, mullet passions and then red hot pie. So we'll probably expect something similar even in this category. I don't know, we'll probably have Vikings R Us and asparagus pea maskers. I'm not sure, but you'll get those splinter niches as well.
DNA companies aren't just busy catching serial killers, they're obsessed with crime.
Visit Ancestry for free access to millions of criminal and convict records dating back to the 1700s.
Terrifying. He looks like a barista. On the Ancestry.com sponsored show, Who Do You Think You Are?, Adam Hills discovered this.
A journey for comedian Adam Hills.
It's the fossil nose.
That will take him to medieval Malta.
Mateo's a pirate. Wow, that is a plot twist.
Wow, he's descended from pirates? That is so cool. And explains the 1 foot. This woman found out she's a tiny bit edgy.
Through Ancestry, I was able to discover that I was related to Harry Power, the bushranger, also known as the tutor to Ned Kelly. Everyone wants to be related to a bushranger.
Yeah, you're not. You're related to a bushranger's tutor. But after all we've learnt, who would actually give up their DNA to one of these companies? I would. Well, not me. Some guy called Victor Gruen. So, what were the results? 23andMe said Victor Gruen's DNA is 100% European. Ancestry.com said Victor Gruen is 99% European. I think the other 1% might be moustache. And apparently I mean Victor Gruen, I'm related to American outlaw Jesse James. Does explain my love of getting arrested. Now I know why I am like I am. And now, the pitch. Our mystery box full of impossible briefs. Much like a school banking scheme, tonight we're targeting kids. We asked our agencies to convince us that children should reimburse their folks for raising them. Yep, it's time to implement a parental payback scheme. Can they do it? Please welcome from Longtail, Mike Sequeira, and from Kojo, Phil Moore. Welcome. All right, Mike, what was your take?
We thought the parent payback scheme would be a great opportunity to teach kids the price of everything.
Let's have a look.
Nobody should have to do their job for free. And when you're a parent, you don't just do one job, you do many. You're a nurse. You're a personal trainer. You're a bodyguard. You're a chef. You're a chauffeur. The Parent Payback Scheme ensures you get paid fairly for everything you do to raise your children. Because why should you be the one who's taken for a ride?
Phil, how did you feel?
Well, we think kids have got a bad habit of using love as a currency, and it's time that stops.
Oh, let's have a look.
Thanks. Cheers. Love you.
Hey, you gotta pay.
Thanks, mate.
Hey!
Love you.
Hey, mate! Hey!
Love you. Thanks, see ya.
Hey, Mum. Thanks. Love you.
Paying with love isn't enough. Teach them to pay the right way.
Good job. All right. Todd, two really good ideas, I reckon. Which one did you prefer?
I'll never kiss my kids again, too.
Number 2.
Yeah,
Christina?
I'm a victim of love currency too.
What did you think, Emily?
I'm actually number 1. My parents talk about a tab system already, so I'm in trouble.
Russell?
Well, I really like the acting in number 1, but I couldn't help but laugh at number 2, and I seriously hope my kids are watching.
All right, congratulations. Gotta go with it. Well, both fantastic. This is for you. It's been a tough decade for magazines. Australian newsstands have lost The Bulletin, Dolly, Cleo, Men's Style, Shop Till You Drop, Madison Famous, Women's Fitness, Your Garden, Bride-to-Be, FHM and Zoo Weekly. Rest in peace, bros. But there was an event on the weekend that was Magazine Christmas. You may have heard about it.
It's the royal wedding everyone's talking about. Celebrate the fairy tale romance of Harry and Meghan with the royal wedding commemorative tea towels. Take home a piece of royal history with 4 beautifully British designs to collect.
I've got mine! Covered in my DNA. Meanwhile, here's what Women's Day offered.
Get ready for the wedding of the year with Women's Day. Free party pack.
I've got mine! Oh, I love you. Oh, do you? Todd. Who benefits most from the royal wedding, the royals or the magazines?
It's a bit of both. I think that magazines use events or global events or massive amounts of drama as almost like shock treatment to a somewhat comatose industry. And some magazines have gone up 40% in one hit. But I think the biggest benefit is to the royals. I think Meghan is making an old brand that some say is losing relevance. She is kind of repositioning that as a bit cool again and popular, a bit like grandma wearing new kicks, you know, like for the royals, Meghan is a gift.
You know what, it's quite interesting. So Women's Day, over 1 million people are reading that. New idea, over 1 million people are reading it. Women's Weekly, over 1.5 million people read Women's Weekly. So it's not like they're gone, but clearly they do rely on people like, royal family in order to get their cover sales.
And I think with the royal family, these guys, they might not be digitally sort of savvy, but they are literate and they're as comfortable with a hashtag as they are a headline. They've got their own channels. They've got 3.7 million followers in Twitter. They've got Facebook. They've got Instagram. They're actually just interviewed. They're actually got a job posting for a head of digital engagement as well. I checked it out. It's not for me though. So particularly with Harry and Will, it is a millennial brand and they've got their own channels. They don't necessarily need the magazines, although it helps fuel their own channels, and that's a place where they can control their messaging as well, so that they can get the news out there in terms of their charitable initiatives and those kind of things. So to be honest, I feel like the magazines benefit more from the royals. 5
million Australians watched the royal wedding on Saturday night, and online sites such as the Daily Mail have already published 5 billion stories about it. There's even been a Watergate-style reporting into whether or not the empty chair in the church was for Diana's ghost. It wasn't. Meanwhile, post-wedding magazines hit the stands on Monday. Emily, how do you sell gossip magazines in a world where online is fast and free?
I think it's pretty hard, and I think they're in quite a lot of trouble, and they might not be dead, but I think they're certainly, they're looking at a category that's definitely not in growth. But ultimately what they've got is an ability to tell the whole story, and they can put the complete picture there and they can go back to the beginning and they can lay it all out. And if you look at the category that they sort of play in, they're really all about time out. So what they're doing is laying the story out in a way that allows you to sort of escape, go back into the moment. So whether that's you're a hardcore monarchist or whether that's someone who had a really fun party on the weekend and wants to kind of relive the whole thing, it gives you that opportunity.
But I think social media is probably the best gift to the gossip magazines because it can start that conversation in a very brief way and then get you to go into more detail in the magazine itself. On the flip side, I think technology, particularly self-serve in supermarkets, has hurt magazines because it used to be an impulse purchase where you're standing around waiting and you kind of have a look and then the cover, which is basically an ad, catches you and then you buy it. But now with self-serve, you just go straight through. So distribution is another challenge for them.
In a highly publicised recent case, Bauer Media had to fork out a record $4.5 million for defaming Rebel Wilson in Women's Day. Months on, the mag is still peppered with anonymous sources and much of the advertising rings phony.
In this week's Women's Day, Brad and Jen engaged. Against all odds, he's won her heart again.
Nah, didn't happen.
Nicole and Keith over. Her friends and family rushed to her side.
Nah, didn't happen. This didn't happen either.
World exclusive. Camilla and Charles officially divorced.
World exclusive. Women's Day is officially divorced from reality. Christina, do you wish that you could sell everything with blatant lies?
Absolutely not. It's not a buck at all costs. And particularly in, I guess, our world, there are codes of conduct, there are ethics, and there's the thing called misleading and deceptive conduct that puts absolute regulation on that. If we come back to the tabloids, though, I think there's probably a few things that have led us here. When you look at humans, when you look at us, we're actually hardwired for drama. There have been studies that have been done and we respond more immediately to loaded words like bomb and divorce over things like fun and smile. You know, it makes us feel better when we can see that other people are having troubles with their marriages and that celebrities have cellulite too. And so what you have is this thing that just grows and grows, and it's this sort of truth-resistant metavirus that we've all kind of had a hand in creating. Even myself, I'm complicit. I enjoy my gossip magazines at a doctor's surgery. And like some of this stuff is, if it's not bullying, it's 1 degree away from bullying. We can't abdicate responsibility here and just blame it on the tabloids. We've got to kind of put our money where our ideals are to make sure that we get the kind of quality that we want out there.
I do think magazines have a bit in common with advertising, where there's a bit of truth and it's wrapped in so much glitter and spin that it's hard to find by the time it gets to the end. It's the endless search for new and novel. Because everything is already spread on social media, they have to find something unique and a unique angle. And unfortunately, the unique angle is often something that's not real. And that's why it's unique. I mean,
no one else has this story, because we made it up.
Exactly. And we do know in social media, there's been plenty of studies that show that lies get retweeted more than the truth for a very simple reason, is that they're different and they're unique and it's new information that people haven't heard before. The only problem with it is it's false.
The most widely read magazines in the country are actually from Coles and Woolies. Those are free. Russell, is the only way to save the magazine industry to give the magazines away for free?
Well, free is a really good model because it relies on advertising. And in the end, a Coles magazine and a Woolworths magazine are basically advertising platforms. You know, I think one of the things that occurred in the print world is that they forgot that they are first and foremost there for advertising. It isn't about the journalism. It's interesting, the first newspaper, you're not going to survive otherwise. You have to be about ads. Yeah. So it's interesting, the first newspaper in Melbourne was called the Melbourne Advertiser. And the front page of the Melbourne Advertiser was all ads. And then you had to get inside the book to get some journalism. So that's the right way to think about it. If you're in the print...
No, that's not the right way to think about it. That's one way to think about it.
Yes. Women's Day ads may not be able to predict the future, but they can tell you a lot about the past. Like this one from 1996, a time capsule from a very different world.
In Women's Day this week, first scoop photos of Jacko's secret Sydney wedding, and the bride wore black. I can't wait for my day. Plus, Jacko's private party for kids only. Sly tells of life and death race to save his baby, and tragic Adriana under house arrest. Rose Hancock's outrageous offer to Pauline Hanson, JFK's lavish retreat for his stressed wife. And don't miss our biggest ever Christmas giveaway.
Oh, wow, I think my doctor just got that copy. That's just about all for tonight. Please thank our panel, Russell, Emily, Christina and Todd. We'll leave you with this collaboration from 23andMe and Lexus. We'll let you decide if it's a window into an unnerving future of DNA testing or simply another opportunity to market around an irrelevant occasion. We'll see you next week.
You're one of a kind. Your Lexus should be too. Introducing Genetic Select by Lexus, a breakthrough in car buying that uses your DNA to match you with a car of your genes. Partnering with 23andMe, we're now able to personalize a Lexus exclusively for you. And best of all, operating your vehicle no longer requires a key. Experience craftsmanship at the genetic level. Experience amazing.